Good morning, everyone. Welcome to VUS TESOL Webinars 2020. My name is Wook, and I'll be your host today. Before we start, can I check if all of you hear me well? So if yes, please type yes or okay in the chat box. Thank you. So we're all good to start. This free webinar series is held by VUS with the participation of ELT experts and invited speakers from well-known publishing houses such as Oxford University Press, Macmillan Education, Cambridge Assessment English, National Geographic Learning, Publications, and eFuture. We hope to bring you the most updated and practical teaching methods and techniques so that you can teach your class more effectively. So thank you for joining us in today's webinar, Routines and Habits for our 21st Century Learners, presented by Mr. Gregg Sotiropoulos from Publications. Before we start, please be informed that we will have the Q&A session at the end of the webinar. Also, during that time, I'll send you the links for you to complete a survey about this webinar and to download your certificate of participation. And now let me introduce to you Mr. Gregg Sotiropoulos. Over to you, Gregg.
Thank you very, very much. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you. Give me one moment. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this moment in time, we are all living in a very turbulent period in which we were thrown into this so-called online learning, distant learning situation with our students. What I want to explore today are routines and habits that we have as teachers and some suggestions that we can offer to our students to make teaching not only online, but in general in our classrooms, day to day, to make it more effective and more efficient. Aristotle said that we are not, or rather that we are, repeatedly what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. So what we're going to see today is that through our habits, forming a routine day to day, we can, in actuality, become excellent, quote unquote, in what we want to do in life in general and also in school. So let's explore first and foremost the word routine. What is a routine? Okay, it's a regular way of doing things in a particular order. But we can also think of a routine as a sequence of actions done in a particular order. We have so many routines in our day-to-day lives that we need to sometimes take a step back and reflect on our routines and if they're actually working to our benefit or not. The next word that we're going to analyze is our habit. What exactly is a habit? It's an action or a behavior that we do often in a regular and repeated way. Now, in both words, in the definition, there are similarities, okay? What I want us to do is to take a step back and to say, from the moment we wake up in the morning to the moment we close our eyes and go to sleep, what are the habits that we have now in our lives? What routines do we follow? Reflect on their efficiency, and maybe, just maybe, we can fine-tune them or maybe even change them altogether in order to make our lives a little bit easier, especially in this very turbulent time we're living in. Cruise control. Now, when we're in our car and we're feeling a little bit, let's say, lazy, we don't want to change gears when we're driving. So we put on the cruise control just to take it easy. Sometimes with our habits, we do the same thing. We put ourselves on automated pilot mode. Okay. And when we fall into this trap, we have to be very, very careful, because as teachers, if we do this, then we in fact sometimes may become boring, dare I say, to our students, okay, in the eyes of our students and in the eyes of our colleagues. So we have to be very, very careful with the habits that we have, that we don't fall into this trap of cruise control or automated pilot. So now I'd like us to reflect for a moment, and this is where I want you guys to type in your chat box. What's the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning? What's the first thing that you guys do? When you wake up in the morning, your eyes open? Look at my phone. Oh my goodness. Are you serious? Okay. How many of us do that? In today's day and age, many of us wake up and check our phones, drink water, make coffee, sit up, check my Facebook. We breathe. Very good. Look at the phone. Look at my phone. Do exercise. Brush my teeth. Excellent. Okay. So these are the first things you do in the morning. Now, the next question I want to ask you is, that first thing you do in the morning, does it set the tone for your mood for the next thing that you do in your routine? Does it set the tone? Does it change your mood? For example, you go on Facebook, you check your phone, you get a bad message. Right away, that puts you in a very bad frame of mind to start your day. Now, some of you wrote exercise, drink some water. Those are all positive things to do, okay, physically, to get you jump-started, okay? When I was a teacher in New York City, without coffee, my day is ruined. I agree with you. I always have my coffee with me. In the United States, when I was teaching primary school, this was my, let's say, routine and my habits that I had. I woke up at 5:30 in the morning. So the time that we wake up, does that matter? I exercised every single morning. I needed to do some physical activity. I always purchased my sesame bagel from Tom's Bagel Factory, right? I read the New York Times before I went to work. Well, the New York Times, you know, it's a big difference reading an actual newspaper than reading the news on a laptop. Eating popcorn while watching Netflix, brushing my teeth morning and night. These were just a few of the things that I did. But the point being is, the moment that I woke up at 5:30, I had to make a conscious decision. What would be the first habit in my routine to make my day go well? And if I did something that didn't make me feel well, I'd have to change it. And it kind of makes sense. So my question is also for us to reflect on and to ask our students this question. Ask your students, what's the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning? See what they say. Their answers would be quite surprising. Routines are usually a collection of habits or actions that we do on a regular basis to bring order to our day. Now, that's an interesting phrase, to bring order, because when we don't have routine or habits, our day is very loose. And so what's happening here is, and we have to think about this, in this quarantine period where our students are forced to stay home, what happens to their routine? What happens to their habits? We are social human beings by nature. And so our students cannot go to school to socialize with other students in which they're used to. Their routine at school has been changed. So it's normal when you're doing online learning to have this, let's say, emotional or social emotional uneasiness given by your students. And so what we need to focus on is to have a rhythm in our daily life and to provide a rhythm to our students online and when they come back to class. You see, ladies and gentlemen, in this webinar, I want us to look at the phase that we are in now, online learning, and also the phase 3, where when the students go back to your classroom, they're going to have to go back to their routine and their habits, okay? But maybe they have to change accordingly. So it's time to calibrate our routines and habits. And today, right now, I'm going to give you some concepts, okay? Some ideas, how we can do this, how we can finally calibrate our routines and to help our students do the same. So, some resources or concepts for our routines are as such. But what is our most limited resource? What is it? Can anybody tell me what would be our most limited resource? Absolutely. Time. We never get time back, do we? Never, right? Time is very precious, and we see that now more than ever before with this coronavirus. Okay. Yes, water is also a very precious resource. I put that picture there as a little trick. But for all intents and purposes, it's time. And we don't have enough time. When doing online learning, our time is extremely limited in order to reach out to our students, to engage them, to motivate them, okay? So time is the most limited. We're going to discuss now self-discipline, self-awareness, behavior, and ambition. These 4 resources, these concepts that surround routines and habits are so crucial in understanding ourselves, how we live, how we work every day, how we go through our day, and to have our students learn the same mindset that I'm going to share with you right now. So, resource number 1, self-discipline. It's a key to many doors, not least of which is one that leads to a better, stronger, and healthier version of oneself. You see, English, ladies and gentlemen, is the only subject that will open doors to our students worldwide. Okay, our students are what I call future global agents of change. Their future is not just in the country or the town or the city that they live in. The entire world is theirs. But what they need to realize is through English, they can open the doors. And through self-discipline, it's the key that will open that door. Okay. Students don't realize this because they don't have a purpose on why they're in the classroom. And so, how can we develop this resource? First, it's crystal clear. It has to be crystal clear. What do you want to accomplish throughout your day? Okay. Don't forget why you want to accomplish these goals. Okay. We must eliminate the distractions in our day-to-day lives. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is a distraction more times than none. Okay, so we must be aware of this and mindful. We must know our weaknesses. We must understand that we are not superheroes, because as we know, all superheroes do have a weakness. We have to change our perception on willpower. Okay, some of us believe that we don't have a strong, let's say, a strong amount of willpower, and we're fooling ourselves because we have more than we know. Prioritizing tasks and our activities. Many times throughout our day, we are prioritizing things that really shouldn't be there. And we always have to track our progress. Many times, we do things that are working, yes, but we never understand the progress of how something is working or how something is not working and why. So these are some ideas, some tips on how to develop our self-discipline that will help us in turn have more effective habits and a routine. And please remember, finally, for self-discipline, that in the end, you are accountable for your action and your thoughts. It's our responsibility. It's very easy to put the blame on others. But in actuality, we're accountable for what we do throughout our day. The next is self-awareness. The conscious knowledge of one's own, character, feelings, motives, and desires. Now, along with discipline, awareness, I would have to put it, let's say, 50-50. It has the same weight, okay? With this resource, we have to develop it in the following manner. Feedback. Ask for it and accept it. Many times as teachers, we are, let's say, nervous, anxious when people come to observe us or to offer us feedback, because immediately we assume that it's going to be something negative. Okay, it isn't negative. The comments and the criticism are not negative. It is to be looked at as something positive, because they in turn are going to help us to become better, because we can always better our best at teaching. Mirror, mirror on the wall. This is the visual prompt that I just showed you here to the left, is that when we look at ourselves in the mirror, it's very difficult to look at our faults. But in doing so, you develop yourselves better as a teacher. Strengths and limitations. Now, I use the word limitations all the time, especially with my students. The word weakness is extremely negative, and I rarely use it, okay? We must develop our strengths and understand our limitations as teachers. It's okay to have limitations. This is the reason why we have a faculty. You see, the faculty members, they complement one another. Some faculty members that have strengths complement other faculty members' limitations. And that is why we are a team. In teaching, there is no I. In teaching, there's only we. We must reflect. In self-awareness, we reflect all the time. We reflect on what we said, how we said it, our verbal and non-verbal communication. With online learning, our students are only focused on our verbal communication because we're stuck in this little box. This is why it's so important when you do online learning to make sure that you are at least an arm distance away from the camera and further back so the students can see you. Self-talk with self-awareness. In self-talk, it's talking into your subconscious and saying, you know what, regardless of what's going on, I'm pretty great, because we all have greatness. Don't dwell on the failures that we have or that we have done, because let's remember, FAIL, the acronym, is first attempt in learning. So please, don't worry about failures. Don't dwell on that. Don't waste your energy on that. Okay, move ahead. Learn to say no. In your routine throughout the day, if you don't learn to say no, your routine is going to be redirected to what others want rather than what your goals are in mind. So remember that. It is okay at some point to say no. And the decisions that you make should be questioned. Question yourself, reflect and question yourself. This decision that I'm making, or that I have made, was it the right one? If not, why? What can I do? How can I change it? Our behavior. Now, this is a tricky one. How to develop behavior. As an adult, I've had the argument with other colleagues and friends that say, well, you know, as adults, our behavior is pretty concrete. It's pretty formed already. And I tend to disagree. Acting with a purpose. Okay. Your behavior shows with everything you do, with everything you say. So in your day-to-day habits and routines, act with a purpose always. Always look beyond your limits every single day. If you start to limit yourself, okay, you're not allowing yourself to go through and to show your true potential. Never expect results from your actions. Never expect a pat on the back, a good job. Don't do something to expect something in return. That's the wrong way of looking at your behavior. Setbacks improve your skills. Embrace them. When you have setbacks, okay, you analyze these setbacks. You reflect on these setbacks. And therefore, you will improve yourself for the next time. Like I said with the failures, examine why you failed. Examine the skill sets that were missing and improve. Seek those who share your positive attitude. When you seek people around you that have the same positive attitude, it's going to make you a better person. In doing so, when others have limitations, you need to forgive them. You don't focus on that. You know, when people have limitations, you don't point the finger because you yourself have limitations. It's looking in the mirror, like I said before. And this sounds pretty elementary, but in our behavior, you have no idea how far a thank you can go. A simple thank you day to day can make or break a person's day in your interaction with them. Now, keep your thoughts positive because your thoughts become your words. Keep your words positive because your words become your behavior. Keep your behavior positive because your behavior becomes your habits. And this is so true if you think about it. When we think negative thoughts, what happens when we speak too soon and we don't think before we speak? Those words slowly become and show our behavior in that moment. And then that behavior, in turn, if it's continued, becomes a habit. In essence, this means that our students look up to us more than we know. So in teaching, we have to be so careful with what we say and how we say and the habits that we have in our class and online, because our students are focusing on every single thing that we do in their lives. The impact that we have in their lives is so great that now that we are removed from their lives, imagine, you have to empathize a little bit now, be in their shoes, imagine what's going on in their homes, in their lives. Look what's going on with us as adults. I mean, sometimes I'm a little bit crazy. I have 2 kids locked up in the room over there. All right, I have an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old who are doing lessons. And yet, as an adult, it's crazy sometimes with the situation we're in. My routine and my habits have changed, I'll admit it. But I'm trying very hard to reflect and to try to put it back on track in where it should be. Now, with behavior, I want us to examine when kids don't listen. When kids don't listen, it's for a reason, isn't it? How many of you have been in that situation where you're teaching or you're having a one-on-one with a student or even with your own child, and they're just not listening? Have you ever asked yourself, why aren't they listening? Why is their behavior like this? So you need to ask yourself some questions. And in asking these questions, and asking these questions to the person that you are talking to, you will understand why the behavior is as such. Are they hungry? Are they tired? Have you been paying attention to them? And I mean really paying attention. When we don't respond to what they say right away, we aren't modeling good listening behavior. The communicative approach, speaking and listening. When a child is speaking to you, you must be there with them, 100%. Would a change of scenery, getting outside, improve their behavior? Do you know how many times in New York City I was having a class and I saw that in general, the behavior of my class was just not right. And I would say to my students, everybody up, let's go outside. And I would remove them from the classroom. Now, yes, I understand for some of us, maybe it's not possible. But if you don't take that chance, if you don't give that suggestion in a faculty meeting in order to do this, why not? And then when speaking to your students, get down to their level. You're harder to ignore them. You see, right now you can't understand it because I'm sitting, but I'm 2 meters 2, I'm 6'7". So when I was teaching primary school, students were looking at me like I was a giant. But when I was talking to them and when they were trying to reach out to me because of their behavior, I spent many, many hours on my knees in the classroom. Hold their hands to get and keep their attention. Here, ask for their eye contact. Do not start speaking until you get their eye contact. I do this with my son all the time. Have them repeat back what you said. Doesn't have to be word for word, but as long as you understand that they were listening and that they got it, paraphrasing what you said. Teachers, we have to keep our language positive. In all of my conferences and all of my visits around the world, I've always said, choose your words carefully. Because in our mind as an adult, saying something one way is interpreted in a different way in the eyes and the ears and the hearts of our children, of our students. So be very careful with that, because that will change their initial immediate behavior. And that behavior will in turn affect habits and their routines. It's like a puzzle. It's like a chain. Ambition. Now, in ambition, we have to set goals. It is the fourth resource. We as adults and children need to have ambition in general, day to day. But setting goals doesn't necessarily mean to share them with everybody. You really don't have to. They can be private, personal goals that in a day, in a week, in a month, when you achieve them, that is personal achievement. We must all be willing to take risks. Risks are okay. Risks are one of the ways that we are able to step outside of what? To step outside our comfort zone. Expose yourself to new ways of thinking. Please, don't be the racehorse with the blinders on. We must understand that thinking is 360. It's multifaceted. Right now, we're living in an age of reaction instead of proaction, a reactive mindset instead of a proactive mindset. So we need to start doing this and having our students learn new ways of thinking. Don't always focus on the process. Okay. We have to focus on execution. It's actually doing the final act. Competition. Yes, sports competition is good, but in general, don't compete. When you compete, it puts you in a different behavioral mindset. And as you can see in this turbulent time, people actually work together and promote social distancing. And do it. Power of proximity. When you surround yourself with people who have the same behaviors, the same ambition, the same attitudes, they in turn have similar habits and routines. And this will only bring you up rather than put you down. Setting our students up for success. Now, here I'm going to share with you some tips that are strictly for your students and how to help them with their day-to-day habits and routines. Students need to know their dominant study habit. Now, there are a few study habits. Some students may have a mix of one or two, maybe sometimes three. Some of our students may be visual learners, auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, logical learners, verbal learners, and maybe even social learners, or solitary in some instances. Now, habits, these particular study habits that we can help with our students, and as teachers, it's good to know what kind of study habits are our students and do they need from us? If some of our students are more visual or more auditory, it's very difficult when we are talking a lot in class for them to understand the concepts or the facts that we are giving them. Some students are more social with their study habits. If they're social and you mix them with solitary students, those solitary students will not be engaged enough in class. So it's good to take a step back and to reflect on our students in classroom and what exactly are their dominant study habits. Create and write down realistic study goals. Now, for students, it's interesting to find out when do they usually study and for how long. Ask them these questions. Do students find that it's effective to study for a long period of time? It's been proven that studying more doesn't make you smarter. Studying smart makes you smarter. Having study breaks, but not study breaks where you go from one subject and you start studying another subject and go back to the other again. It's taking those those break times, which I like to call treat yourself times, so that students can do whatever they want that has nothing to do with academia. Ask your students, are they happy with their grades? Some students, brain breaks. Exactly, brain breaks. I love it. That's another great phrase to use. Are they happy with their grades? Some students are hard on themselves. They want to get better grades. They want to improve all the time. They want to grow their performance. Other students are just very lackadaisical. Oh, no, I'm okay with a C. But you know very well that they are capable of producing a B. Maybe their habits and their routines are restricting them from doing better. So why not get into their heads and find out the answers to some of these questions? What grades do you need to have in order to pass? Passing grades, I feel, are a cap to many students' potential. If a student says, all I need is a 65 to pass, that means I don't need to do any more work. That is the minimal amount of work that I need to do in order to pass your grade, your course. Instead of upping the bar, okay, and having them reach their fullest potential. What are their personal commitments? What are their priorities? Knowing your students' background, especially for teenagers, is important. In traveling through Latin America and in other countries, I found that students have a lot of responsibility after school. And now with this quarantine period, it's unbelievable the amount of responsibility students have in the house, let alone keep up with their schoolwork. So we need to get down to this and figure out what are the answers to some of these questions to help them with their study habits. Make study time a part of your daily routine. Study time. How do we do this? How do we set time out throughout our busy week to make sure that students study? First thing is to ask students to sit down and to write out what they do from Monday to Friday and on the weekends. Break it up into time slots. There you will find that there are maximum times that where students are not doing anything, wasted time, they can throw in a half an hour of study time. But making that half an hour of study time constant, making it part of their routine, making it a habit that when I go to study, I'm going to limit the distractions around me and focus on what I have to do in order to be a better student. It's just about being in the zone. And just, being in the zone is a phrase that they use in sports, like football, basketball, soccer, baseball. It's being in the zone. Be in the zone. And when coaches say, be in the zone, it means that you block everything out in that moment, that you are going to play basketball for 45 minutes and think of nothing else but winning. It's being in that zone mindset. So why not establish a study zone? And in this study zone, we're going to look at three things. We're going to look at, first of all, where are they studying? How are they studying? And how are they as a student? For example, do they eat well? Do they exercise? Are they getting enough sleep? And so if a student has their own space to study, they know that when they go to that space, nothing's going to bother them, and they're going to be 100% engaged in what they have to do at that moment. But remember, in every situation, we always need to have a plan B and a plan C. So if a student has their study zone, always have a plan B study zone, just in case, you never know, something might happen, for them to be in their second safe space. Diet, eating. How many of you change the way you feel, or when you don't eat right, when you eat something that is a little bit, let's say, off your diet, how does that make you feel? Does that change the way that you teach in that moment? Does that change the way you feel throughout the day? I certainly know that when I huff down, a full pizza from Domino's, about a half an hour later, I'm out. I can't do anything. So we have to think about that. What we put into our body, does it change how we can focus in having a positive study habit? Exercising, TPR, total physical response, that is so important for students, right? When you're doing online learning, how many of you, just a very quick yes or no, how many of you do TPR exercise, total physical response exercises? How many of you? Nope, no. Really? Anyone else? Yes. Good, yes, you do. Excellent. No. I'm on my laptop right now. And so when dealing with TPR, you get yourself up. If you can't do this, do it. You move around your environment. You have your students say, what is going on now? Where is he going? What is he doing? It's certainly important to do during an online class, because if you get your students up with you and you get them moving around, you're not really worried so much about if they're paying attention to what you're saying, but more so what you're doing. Exercise and movement helps with students' concentration. The blood gets flowing, the oxygen gets flowing. So you cannot expect a student to sit in front of a computer for more than 15 minutes. I don't care what their age is, and not get zoned out after 15 minutes, even less. But yet, I see it with my son. Teachers are talking and talking and talking and talking and asking questions. Half of the class is just not paying attention, right? And the other half is there, but not so much. So wake them up. Exercise is so important, and so is sleep. Now, during this turbulent time, kids are not sleeping enough. They're staying up later. They're off their routine. They say, oh, we don't have the school buses in the morning. I don't have to wake up early. I could just not pay attention during the online class. Their habits have changed, right? So we have to think about this, all of this, while we're at home, while we're cooperating with our faculty members, speaking to our students, speaking to their parents. It's understanding what are their study habits now, and how can we change those to make them more effective? How can we change those habits? Create a more solid routine for them. With sleep, it is so important for whatever age. And so when you're teaching preschoolers, they need 10 to 13 hours of sleep. When you're teaching primary kids, they need 9 to 11 hours of good sleep. And teenagers, 8 to 10 hours. So the teenagers, let's talk about that for a moment, their routines and their habits have changed because they're more on technology. They're more on TikTok, Snapchat, Depop, and all those other apps, Fortnite and all those games, Instagram, Messenger. And it's like a drug. They could spend hours on it, to be honest. So can you, right? But if you think about this now, as we mentioned, all of these resources, how much time during your day is wasted on that? Just think about that for a moment. Everything plays a role with everything else. And so when we have our self-awareness in check, when we have our self-discipline in check, when we have our behavior in check, okay, all of these resources that we're going to use to fine-tune our habits day to day and our routines day to day will only make us better in our interactions with our students and their interactions with us. As Walt Disney said once, whatever you do, do it well. Do it so well that when people see you do it, they will want to come back and see you do it again. And they will want to bring others and show them how well you do what you do. That's teaching. That's teaching. That is having the love and the mindset and the routine and the habits all in check, so that whatever you do day in and day out to inspire and to motivate those future global agents of change, that you do it well enough that those students are going to want to see you the next day online, that they're going to want to see you in school the next day, that they're going to talk about you to their friends and say, Paul, let's go. I can't wait to learn English. It's being that influencer. It's being that mother figure, father figure. You see, our roles as teachers is so multifaceted. It's being that superhero in the eyes of our students. It's being that nurse, that doctor, that facilitator, that innovator, that friend that they don't have right now in this online learning situation, because they don't have you in class so that they can see you, feel you, touch you, hug you, whatever, right? So I think it's very important that we as educators check ourselves, monitor ourselves, reflect on ourselves, first, as a human being, second, as a teacher, and third, as being that bridge between the English language and opening up the doors to our students' future. And in doing so, if we look at habits and routines differently, focusing on these resources, I guarantee you that the change will be for the better. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very, very much for your time. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I can't see any of you, but it really was a pleasure. So without further ado, I think we have the Q&A.
It comes to the Q&A session. You can type your questions in the Q&A box or in the chat box. We try to answer as many as we can. Thank you.
TPR, total physical response. Total physical response. It is responding with your whole body in class or online. So for example, if you're teaching body parts, touch your nose, touch your eyes, touch your mouth, but you have them stand up and move around. You're very welcome. Thank you guys, really. It was a pleasure speaking to all of you. I'm a people person. You know, in all the events that I do live all these years, it's very difficult for me. I'm out of my comfort zone because I like to see people and hear the tone of their voice. So I thank you very much for your comments. I'm open to any questions that you have whatsoever. Yes. Now, how can I make friends with students or children who do not have good behavior? I will give you a very quick, oh, there's a lot now, a lot of questions. I'll give you a little personal story about myself. I was born and raised in New York. My parents are from Greece. Growing up in New York in the 1970s, 1980s, yes, I'm that old. I was mixed up in a lot of different groups of bad kids. Makes me who I am today. When I started teaching at 20, I took the risk and I exposed myself to the students, telling them my background, telling them that I, Gregg Sotiropoulos, I was in a gang and I got out of it. And that I stole once or twice, that I did things that I wasn't proud of. And what happened here was, follow me because there's a point. I didn't just come out and say this, it came out through discussion and through interactions. What I saw was this, with these bad students, this bonded me somehow with these bad students because they realized that behaviors can change. And they realized that, there's always a reason behind a behavior that is being shown in class. The trick is, as teachers, is to try to find that why. We know the how, we see how they're reacting. Why are they doing that? So it's knowing your students really well and allowing them to know you as a teacher. Okay. Where do I start? Oh my. How can I back? Okay. When a teacher insults you, when a student insults you, right away we have guidelines. First is respect. RESPECT. And this is how I explain it to students. I sing the song. I play the song. Respect. Kids who insult you, first and foremost, don't respect themselves. Respect is about respecting yourself first and then those around you. So that means for some reason, something's going on with their student. For them to be insulting you and lashing out at you, it means something is going on with them. It's finding out what that is that will stop them from lashing out on you, because that becomes a habit. Could you please? Wow. Wait a minute. How to get back on track after breaking a habit without feeling down. If you broke a habit, if the habit was a positive habit, if it was a habit that was working, and you broke that habit, yes, what I would suggest is to reevaluate the habit that you broke, if it really was that important. And if it was, you have to have the willpower, right? And the self-awareness and the discipline to say, I broke it, can't do it again. And refocus. If you do it again, you just have to try even harder and refocus. Sacrifice. It's hard. Guys, this presentation is an hour. I mean, routines and habits take discipline, take time. Don't expect tomorrow to change. It's not going to happen. All right. But hopefully, day by day, you'll do it with baby steps.
Greg, I think there's a good question in the chat box.
I didn't check. Oh, I'm sorry. I was looking at the question box. I apologize.
Yeah. Don't worry. I can read the question for you.
Yes, please.
Some people keep saying that to build a habit, we should practice it continuously for 20 days at least. How do you think? Does it work the same in learning and teaching?
Repetition, guys. Repetition, repetition. If you don't repeat and repeat again and repeat better, it's never going to work. It's never going to be implemented. Now, I'm not saying to repeat as for example, in learning and teaching, rote learning, memorize, repeat, memorize, repeat. No. You need to understand, to conceptualize, to understand, for example, a song. Many of you know the words to a song, but do you know the meaning to the song? Maybe not. It's that mix of knowing the words with the meaning. So to build a habit, yes, I don't know, I wouldn't say 20 days at least, but building a habit takes time and repetition and proper repetition. Now, I'm not saying, oh, okay, I'm going to wake up at 6 o'clock today. I really want to wake up at 5:30, but I'll wake up at 6. I was tired. The next day, 5:45. The next day, 5:30. The next day, 6 o'clock. No. If it's 5:30, it's 5:30. And you keep it constant. And you push towards that. You discipline yourself towards that. And then what you're going to see is, for some people, it could take days. For some people, it could take 15. For some people, it could take a month. It depends on the person's behavior, awareness, discipline, etc. Okay. I hope that answered your question, because that was a good question. If you could help me out, because I'm a little bit, I have questions on this side, and now I have questions on this. Should I build a schedule in order to be persistent in a good habit? I wouldn't create a strict schedule. What I would do is insert habits gradually. Okay, don't do it all at once, because then it's going to be too much. It's going to be too overbearing. Do it slowly, and start with the hard ones first. That's what I would do. I would start with the hard ones. Okay, leave the easy ones for last. Wow. Let me see. How to break a bad habit. Don't do it. Stop doing it. It's hard. I'll tell you a little secret. I have a thing with Oreo cookies. I mean, I could eat literally 2 boxes of Oreo cookies watching a Netflix movie. I have stopped eating Oreos. The first week that I wasn't eating Oreo cookies, now you may laugh, but this is part of this question. I was thinking of Oreo cookies while watching Netflix, and I was salivating. I kid you not. I was salivating, and I was angry. My mood changed. I was angry because I didn't have that sugar fix from the Oreos. But I don't eat Oreos anymore. I'm still a little bit angry, but that's okay. That's for other reasons. But yes, you can break it. Just do it. Okay. Welcome. Thank you. How to keep your students motivated. Empathy. Understand where your students are coming from. Just be cool. Have fun. Okay. Right? Listen to your students, please. Be aware of their nonverbal body language, because they are telling you so much more than what they're saying just verbally. And this may sound harsh, but you cannot motivate your students all the time. You cannot expect to motivate a class of 30 students all the time in one class. Reach tangible goals. Try to motivate your students every week. Every single student in your class, at least once in the week. Twice, 3, 4 times, that's great. But at least motivate each and every one by the end of the week. Okay. I apologize for my voice. I have allergies today. And what will you do if a teenager student in your class often lacks sleep? If you can, contact their parents. If you cannot, ask them why. Find out the answer. Why aren't they getting enough sleep? Ask them, how do they think they can get more sleep. Guys, you have to be in contact with your students. Okay. You have to really be in contact. If you have a feeling of something not going on right, talk to them. Online teaching is not just about you in the class and then that's it. You can have online teaching one-on-one with your students for 5 minutes. Tell your student, one of your students, the person who is lacking sleep, I want you to come on Zoom for 5 minutes Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. No academic. You just want to have a chit chat with your student. Okay. Have I missed anything? Because I'm a little bit busy with, oh, here's.
All right.
How do you, did I miss one? John, how do we apply awareness and ambition routines to young learners? I'll use my son as a case study. I just don't want to speak too loud. I believe that my son is somewhat dyslexic. I'm exploring it right now. He's 6 years old. He's in first grade. What was going on in school, all the teachers were saying, oh, everything's fine. He's great. I was seeing his homework. He was doing pretty good because I was traveling. Every year I travel more than 160, 180 days out of the year I'm away. Now that I'm here, I've taken full responsibility of homeschooling my son. He has Zoom lessons with his teacher, but I see that there are huge gaps in his learning. So John, awareness and ambition, he is a totally different student now from the first day he got on Zoom, because I am teaching him that the knowledge that he is missing, the gaps that he has, that I see he has, can be rectified step by step, little by little. He cannot pay attention, he cannot focus. So when he's doodling, right, I allow him to doodle because I know he's listening. And I give him rewards. For example, he likes to do, he likes to create things with Lego and Jenga blocks. I say to him, you will do that when we finish doing our worksheets. He makes a mistake. He keeps asking, you know, primary kids, did I do it right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? And he writes a word, is this correct? And I say, I'm not going to say anything. I want you, now pay attention, I want you to make mistakes. I want you to learn from your mistakes. In school, he had this mindset that mistakes were so bad. So now he has a different mindset, John. He is accepting mistakes. And when he makes a mistake once or twice in grammar, right? The third time, he doesn't make it. And then I say, hey, that's awesome. What do? Positive reinforcement. And what happens? His ambition, he wants to do more. He's more aware of what he's doing, how he's doing it. It's exhausting. It's exhausting, right? But it's working. Okay, guys, look, we have the most difficult job in the world. If you agree with me, give me a thumbs up, give me a, oh yeah. We have one of the most difficult jobs, if not the most difficult jobs in the world. Okay, nobody understands this. That teaching globally is so hard. But you have made the choice to be a teacher. And so, be the best you ever thought you could.
VUS, your English, your future.